Hello and welcome to this guide to eDrawings. We're going to step through 5 topics during this guide. We're going to take a look at what an eDrawing is, how to create one, how to then use them, how to share them with people, and also take a look at some functions in eDrawings Professional. So let's start off with what an eDrawing is. eDrawings is a fast, reliable and convenient way to open and view many 3D models and 2D drawings created by widely used CAD systems. eDrawings Standard comes with a range of tools to allow you to interrogate the 3D design data, such as measurements, creating markups and cross-sections, along with other options to view existing animations as well as simulation results. eDrawings Professional extends the functionality by allowing you to open your models in a virtual reality environment. For more information on eDrawings, or just a reminder, be sure to check out the product pages on our website. There's a handy video to give you a quick overview of the product in action. Okay, so hopefully you all know what an eDrawing is now. Let's take a look at how we create them. Let's drop into SOLIDWORKS. We have an assembly model of a prosthetic foot. The easiest way to get this into eDrawings is to simply use the File menu and choose Publish to eDrawings. We get an option to choose the configuration. We only have one in this example. We also have an option to include an attachment. Now the attachment is a step file, so one of the 3 formats of step file. This is useful if the model needs to be sent to a manufacturing team, a stakeholder, and they need to access a neutral format file for producing manufacturing data from. I'll leave that on for now to show an example. We also have some options to be aware of. This includes things like being able to measure the file. So if you do not want the recipient to be able to measure the file, you can deselect the option. I'll leave it on here for the moment. We can also allow or disable STL export for parts and assemblies again. So if this model needs to be sent to someone who is perhaps going to 3D print it, an STL is normally the file type of choice for that scenario. We can enable that from eDrawings. And then some other options about transferring motion studies or animations from SOLIDWORKS, and also table data. We'll OK that. And the last setting in here is whether or not there's a password on the file. Passwords obviously apply an extra layer of security. So if it is a secure document, you can assign a password to it. I'll leave it off for the moment. When we hit OK, SOLIDWORKS processes the file and creates the eDrawing. Once the file has been converted, the eDrawings application is loaded. And you can see here we have our SOLIDWORKS foot assembly. So down in the bottom right here we have an attachment because we have the step file enabled, and you can see we have the STP or step file. We can turn this on and we've got some options to actually view the attachment, extract the attachment or save it out, or delete it. So just an example, if I press view, this loads up into eDrawings as well. And then we have the step file. You can see here the STP file for this full assembly. Very, very useful method, and it's a great time saver, saves you having to do it from SOLIDWORKS manually. Now the other method of creating an eDrawing is to use the Save As command in SOLIDWORKS. So if we just toggle back to the SOLIDWORKS application, as my original model, rather than using the shortcut, for example, if you didn't need to open it necessarily straight away, we can use the regular Save As command. And on here, we can choose the eDrawings format. In this case, it's an .easm file. Choose the location to save, give it a name, and we can save that file. We get the same options. The only difference here is that the file isn't opened automatically. So great if you just want to save a file to send to someone. If you needed to then open that file up manually, to load the eDrawings application, it is a standalone program, just like SOLIDWORKS. We'd find the program and load it up. And then just like any other file, we can choose to open that. Just while we're in here, if you weren't aware from perhaps the intro video that I linked to, eDrawings is a general purpose CAD viewer. It can open up a whole range of file types from native eDrawings files, SOLIDWORKS files obviously, neutral formats such as STEP and IGES, and some other proprietary CAD formats as well. So when we open the foot model, you can see here we end up with the same result had we have just published it directly from SOLIDWORKS. Okay, so now we've looked at how we can publish an eDrawing. Let's take a look at what we can do with it. So back to our foot assembly in eDrawings. You can see here the assembly model. Let's start with icons across the top of the screen. So we've got a general selection tool. We've got pan, rotate and zoom. exactly the same as we have in SOLIDWORKS. I won't dwell on those too much. We also have zoom to selection, zoom to area, so useful for just quickly zooming into a certain region of interest. We've also got controls for perspective and ambient occlusion as well, so you can get some nice realistic shadowing effects. We also have the standard view orientations, front, back, top, right, etc. Again, exactly like SOLIDWORKS. And also some display styles, so we can view the model in wireframe, shaded with edges, and plain shaded. If we have a look down on the bottom, we have options for kind of resetting the view back to normal. So if you get a little bit muddled up with settings, etc., you can return that back to how it was imported. We've got an animate button. The great benefit of eDrawings is that we work natively in 3D so that we can animate the model. So if someone is a non-CAD user, or maybe it's not that technical, they don't need to worry about zooming, panning and rotating. They can just hit the play button automatically to view the model rotate around. It's a great way for just reviewing the design. We can also explode the view. So if there is an exploded view stored in the SOLIDWORKS file, these will be presented in here, and we can toggle these on and off. So I have a preset exploded view, you can see, with some of the hardware separated out. We can also use a slide bar to play the explode and collapse sequence. Again, this is very easy to use, just dragging the slider back and forth to toggle that mode on and off. To reset this, we just hit reset and go back to the home screen. We can individually move parts, so perhaps you didn't have an explode sequence set up. We can still just pick up individual parts and drag them out just by clicking. eDrawings doesn't support the mates that we have in the SOLIDWORKS CAD file, which is very useful for us just to be able to move these parts around and drill down into that assembly. Again, don't worry, we can't break this. We can hit the reset button and take us back to normal. In the move command, the default is a free drag. There are settings for positional information and translate and rotate. So if we needed to explicitly move a component in a certain XYZ direction, we could do that. We can measure. So if you remember the setting we had when we published the eDrawing in the first instance, as long as that was enabled, it'll allow the recipient to come in here and use the measure commands to start picking up measurements between anything they can click on. So it could be XYZ distances between these two holes here. Notice with any holes or cylindrical objects, we have got settings to choose center to center, or minimum distance or maximum distance between the selected entities. Very useful for working out bolt centers. Anything you click on can be measured. So whether it's just a pair of faces or edges or points, we can extract useful information automatically. We also have sectioning tools. This, much like SOLIDWORKS, allows us to put a plane through the model and drag back and forth in different orientations. And you can see, very intuitive and easy to use, just by dragging the cursor back and forth. We can change the plane orientation. There's some presets to align to X, Y, and Z directions in the model. We can flip any of these as well, so we can flip the plane's opposite side just by dragging around. We can view normal to the plane. We can also choose to hide the plane if you needed to. Maybe you were just going to do a quick screenshot, or for review purposes it wasn't required to see the cutting plane. And we can also choose to create the cap or not. So you'll notice if I zoom in here, what would be the sectioned faces in the real world, there'd be some solid material there. If we wanted to kind of just see through the skin of the model, we can choose to deselect the cap. It often gives a little bit more of a complicated view, I guess, but useful for seeing inside the part. Again, to return to normal, we can either deselect section or press the home button. And the last thing to look at down here is stamps. Stamps are a list of predefined PNGs. You can actually add your own in here. So if there was a watermark we needed to add to this before we send it out, we can do that, and we can resize these to anything that is appropriate. That means that anyone viewing this file or printing it out has a watermark on there as well. Just adds that extra bit of security, so there's no misinformation or misuse of the file. The last functions down here in the interface are mass properties. This allows us to call back information such as total weight, volume, surface area, in multiple types of units. So you can select those as well as decimal places. We've also got markup tools. These are really useful for, I guess, bi-directional communication. eDrawings is great at receiving data back from the recipient. So it could be that you want to create a call out just to put a comment on about a certain component. I'll just put a comment to say change material for that bolt perhaps. It logs a time and date that the user created the comment. And we have a range of other kind of tools. If you wanted to scribble on this, we could start adding additional annotation styles to make that markup more visible. We can even add pictures and images in here as well. We could add dimensions on here. So if there was perhaps another change required, perhaps the distance between these bolts, we could add that on and say, increase to 75 millimeters. So again, a whole range of useful markup tools to allow feedback from the recipient. We can even save those comments back. So if you wanted to send the file back to a SOLIDWORKS user to view by clicking the save icon, it generates a markup file which you can then email or send back to the original sender. You can view any annotations that might have been stored in the model if there was any 3D views. It's useful if you're using SOLIDWORKS MBD. We can recall the 3D views and annotated views to display any information about the model. And the last one is components. So in this case, this is an assembly. So we have a full list of the components that make that assembly up with the structure as it was in SOLIDWORKS. This supports full cross highlighting. So if we select any of these objects in the tree, the model window highlights the corresponding parts as well. And this works the other way as well. So we highlight the parts, the tree is enabled. Now this allows us to also kind of view the, any sort of file names and configuration names and descriptions that would have been stored in SOLIDWORKS. We've also got some controls here for showing all of the model. We can hide parts individually. So if I wanted to right click, we get various options for hiding and showing components. So perhaps I want to hide this cover or hide the sole just to show the mechanism. We can do that. We can even isolate parts on their own. So I might want to just control select, just like in SOLIDWORKS, a selection of components, and then just show those on their own. So we can get a better understanding of a component in its own viewport. Revert back to the, bring all the components back. We can either use these components here to show all, and they get faded back in, or we could have just went and pressed the home button to get us back to the start again. Okay, so we've looked at how we can view and manipulate the eDrawings. Let's take a look at how we can share this information with other users. So back into my eDrawings interface, we have our foot assembly. From the file menu, we can save the eDrawing in numerous formats that we can share with other people. I guess we have the native eDrawing file, which in this case is a .easm. eDrawings can exist in 3 formats for parts, assemblies, and 2D drawings, and they have their own files extension. We can also compress these into a zip file, as well as a zip file with an executable. So the executable is the embedded viewer. So this is a slightly larger zip file, but it means you only have to send it to someone once, and they can install eDrawings via the executable. We can also save in one of 2 HTML formats. One which is ActiveX, which contains an embedded ActiveX frame to run in your web browser, and another using Web HTML. This is a new format that's available in eDrawings Professional, and we're going to get to that in the last chapter. We've then got a number of raster file types, so bitmaps, TIFFs, JPEGs, PNGs, and GIFs. So lots of ways to share your information from eDrawings. Okay, so let's finish up looking at a couple of features unique to eDrawings Professional. First is the Web HTML file format. This format creates a single HTML file that can be opened on any modern browser on any device. We've got the same viewing capabilities as we had in the original eDrawings application. So we have a home button to reset the view. We can automatically animate through the views. We can zoom to fit. We can change the display style, including ambient occlusion and perspective modes, changing the views through standard orientations, as well as any shading display styles. We've also got access to the components lists. This is an assembly file, so you can see the structure here. Any configurations that might be available, any exploded sequences. Using a simple slide and drag bar, we can explode the assembly out. We have a sectioning tool that works very similarly to the full application, where we can drag back and forth. We can change cutting planes and orientations, include capping or not. We've got a measure tool. This is very handy. So we could come in and we can measure between anything. We can select points and edges and faces, for example. And we've also got a manual move command where we can start dragging the parts around on the screen to explore the assembly in more detail. So using the HTML mode with eDrawings is a great way of sharing data and allows people to view the files without having to install any software. And this will run on any device with a modern web browser. For a more immersive experience for your designs, eDrawings Professional also provides a seamless path to virtual reality. Simply open the SOLIDWORKS assembly in VR, adjust scene settings such as floor and sky, put on your headset and jump into your design. Using the controller, you can teleport from one location to another at the click of a button. This makes navigating through your design easy and fast. You can virtually climb stairs, view sight lines, and look over platform edges to feel what it's like to be inside your design. You can grab objects with another controller click, you can view component metadata, use a pick and place method to disassemble, or simply release to put them back. So we've seen how eDrawings is an incredibly versatile tool for viewing and interacting with CAD data. Please take some time to further explore the functions I've discussed here. I'm sure you'll see the benefits. Thanks for watching.